What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home here at fakepigskin.com. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me once again is Brian Twining. Brian, we're back. It's our second NASCAR episode of the week. Got to give the people what they want. Shouts to y'all checking out our last video and joining us for the NASCAR coverage this year. We're here. We're hopefully providing good information. If we can help you with DFS lineups, we can help you with those bets. We're happy to do it. I would say a relatively successful week, considering we talked about Marty Truex. We talked about Ryan Blaney, and that was your 1-2. Obviously, can't hit them all. Denny Hamlin had some issues.
Man,
you can't predict Eric Almirola having issues with batteries and just kind of having to go into the pits constantly. I still feel like Blaney might have been the better driver, but because of the issue with the pit stop and getting moved back, he was still able to make it up to second, and in theory is awesome, but he was still like a good 3 or 4 seconds off pretty much the whole time once he got up there. And really couldn't make up the ground that he needed to in order to make the move. But I had as much fun as I've had watching any race this season, and Martinsville was fun, and now we head to Miami and talk about the Dixie Vodka 400. I love NASCAR's naming convention. Brian, I'm still convinced we can get the Angle of Pursuit 400 or the Angle of Pursuit 500. And
why not?
What Dixie Vodka? What's that? You give like $100 and they put your name on the race? Like
I've never even heard of that. I've never even heard of Dixie Vodka.
Exactly. It's probably the stuff they give out at the Miami clubs and tell them it's Belvedere and charge them like $600 a bottle. But anyways, Brian, exactly. How's everything going? Are you ready to talk some more NASCAR?
I am ready to put last week behind me with the debacle of Denny Hamlin. And I was so excited at the beginning of the race because he started to creep up in the standings, and then when I was watching the board of and was showing the seconds behind the leader, and Hamlin just went from 18 and a half, 19, 20, 21. I just sat there and my whole demeanor just started to slouch down like, oh crap, here we go. So yeah, it ended quickly for Hamlin, but it was still a pretty exciting race with watching Martin Truex, do his thing.
Yeah, Marty's been good to us. Obviously a top 3 last week, win on Wednesday, and now we head to Homestead. And we're going to talk about our favorite options inside 10-1. And I'm having a hard time if we're talking inside 10-1, not going back to the well. Really seems like there's 4 drivers: Kyle Busch, Martin Truex, Kevin Harvick, and Joey Logano, who pretty much dominate this race. And in terms of wins, in terms of top 5s, in terms of laps led, these are the guys. And I don't think it's a coincidence when you look at the odds that Kevin Harvick's 4-1, Martin Truex is 5-1, Kyle Busch is 5.5-1, and Joey Logano is 8-1. So I mean that's the names. Those are the ones we need to talk about. If not Truex, who's the guy for you?
I'm gonna hate myself come Sunday, and I am still very, very scared. But it's got to be Joey Logano. He's got an average start of 6th at this track. He's averaging finish 11th. He's won twice. He's got 3 top 5s, 6 top 10s. He's starting in the front row this Sunday, so he's getting a heads up on everybody. He over the 2020 season, he's led a lap in every race except for one. The last 2 races, we've seen him kind of return to form. He's finished 10th. And then last week he finished 3rd, I believe it was. So he's running a lot better. He kind of fixed his issues with, changing his car. I mean, we had talked about that, and he was the best car to begin the race, and probably could have won both the first 2 stages if they didn't have to pit. He was dominant. He was very dominant.
Apparently, he just needed me to talk crap about him and say how he's been struggling to just like be like, no, actually, Kyle, I'm really good and I'm going to prove it to you. Yeah, he was impressive at Martinsville. He's going to Miami, going to Homestead, a track that he's performed really well. His last 2 races at this track, a win and a top 5. So gotta love that. And if we're talking about kind of basically Harvick, Truex, Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, and Joey Logano as the top 5 guys, getting Logano at 8-1, it is really nice. Like, as much as I love Truex, as much history as Harvick has, Kyle Busch has been incredible here. Being able to get 8-1 instead of 4 or 5-1, gotta love that.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I like the line here with Logano, and that's why I'm going back to him, just with getting that kind of return on a guy who's ran as well as he has at this track. I think that's, again, I'm always looking for value, and I think he's a great value pick here.
Yep. I mean, in terms of stats, in terms of information, they're all kind of in the same bucket for me. And if I can get 8-1 instead of 5-1, I'm going to take that every day. Like I said, I like Truex a lot. I wouldn't fault anyone who went that way. And really at the top of the board, there's some legit names like we talked about on Wednesday. And if you want to just kind of focus your attention there, I would not blame anyone, because in the grand scheme of things, as much as we love the bigger numbers, cashing that ticket at 4-1 is going to feel really good. Because if you could bet NFL or college football or NBA and get 4-1 on a team that you feel like has this good a shot to win, you'd be doing that all the time. So just at the numbers, Denny Hamlin. I know we had frustrations with him last week, or I guess Wednesday. It's weird with these 2 races and 1 race and 2 races, but I'm going back to the well. I think he is a very interesting option this week. He's been on this track 15 times. He's got 2 wins, 4 top 5s, and 10 top 10s. So that's an impressive run. There's definitely a comfort level there. And as much as Wednesday was frustrating, and as much as we don't love kind of the end result, in terms of the way the last 6 races, the last 15 races have gone, Hamlin's been in the mix a lot, been leading laps, been in the conversation, has a win over the last 6, 3 top 5s. Like, there's a lot to like. And, he's a guy for me that, like, if I feel like I might be getting a little extra value just because of how bad Wednesday was and how people's mind, that's kind of there. So yeah, I'll take the 10-1 all day and be very happy with Denny Hamlin.
Yeah, this is another guy that it's really hard to go back to him, but if you're thinking of this in terms of like football, which most of us are more familiar with, this is like the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, I'm not going to put Denny Hamlin in the Kansas City Chiefs area, but we'll just say he's a really good football team who had a really bad week the previous week, and you go into the next week and they're only favored by 2.5, where they should be a touchdown favorite. And that's kind of the way I'm looking at Hamlin here, because he's ran really well at this track, and he's going to be looking to prove that last week is an anomaly. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think he raced in 2019 here, so I think he missed last year's race, and he's going to be looking to make a good return in South Beach.
Yeah, totally on board. Let's talk about another guy that had a little frustration last week on Wednesday. A guy that we were both pretty optimistic about, and a guy that I think you're going to get a phenomenal number. We've been talking about how really you want to target the top of the board, but there are 2 names, and they're probably more like target for top 5s, target for top 10s. As Sunday approaches, you'll get a lot better numbers for other bets. You'll get some matchups, but at 33-1, I kind of like Clint Boyer this week. This is a guy that has a 6th and 8th place finish over his last 2 races at this track. So he's been in the mix. He's been in the conversation. Obviously, last week wasn't the optimal race for him, but he's got a top 5 in his last 6. He's got he's led 129 laps over the last 6. This is a guy that I think is racing really well right now. Obviously, when car trouble strikes, there's really not much the driver can do about it. But he's been in that, he's challenging for the top 5, challenging for winning stages. And it's a longer shot bet. So small wager could win you a nice payday. And I'm happy to take a shot at Boyer at 33-1. I'm happy to take a shot at 8-1 for a top 3. I'm curious to see what a top 5 is going to look like. Maybe 3-1. If I can get that value, I'm going to take that all day.
Yeah, in his let's see about this. In his 14 races that he's ran at this track, he's finishing average 13 to 14th place here. So, Boyer is he's another guy who runs really well here, and you're getting this amazing number because his last 2 races we've seen him run in the car trouble. So, he's kind of on the downslide, and it, like we talk about with value, Boyer is one of those drivers that in the beginning of all these past 3-4 races, he's been running into the top 10, top 15 consistently, and it's taking something out of his hands to make him fall back. So if they could just get that together, much like Joey Logano did last week, we could see him again compete for top 5, and that would be a tremendous payday for anybody.
Totally. Yeah, I'm going to be looking at him for probably at least a top 3 or top 5, and maybe take a shot at him to win the whole dang thing, because he's been improving. He's got a 6th and an 8th in his last 2 races at this track. I think he's ready to win a race or be at least in the conversation. So he's a guy I want to look at. Now this one's going to be an interesting name, a name that I think I was very surprised when Brian mentioned to me that he liked him, because I was looking at him and I was like, wait, I can't get up behind this guy, and that's Austin Dillon. I guess my first concern here is what he can do for Sunday. Obviously, he was pulled out of his car on Wednesday because of heat exhaustion. So that is concerning. However, we saw a similar instance with Bubba Wallace after Sunday's race. And he competed like crazy on Wednesday. There was another driver that was Ryan Newman, was dealing with heat exhaustion after the race, and went and had a fine trip around Martinsville. So he's probably another guy that I'm going to look more top 5, top 10. But when you consider his outright is 100-1, you're going to get some really nice numbers on some top 5s. And Austin Dillon is a guy that has popped at this track. His average finish is 9.5. He's got his 8th and 11th place in his last 2 races. Has been running well up until Martinsville. And is a guy that at what you're going to be able to get him at for like a top 5 or top 10. I would be pretty surprised if he's not on the card for Sunday.
Yeah, it was one of those moments where Kyle and I both it was the Spider-Man meme of pointing at each other when I mentioned him, Austin Dillon, because you just come up with this name, and to have both of us thinking about that, but we were both looking at the same numbers. Like he's gotten better each time he's raced at this track. It's been 14, 12, 11, 11, 8. He's doing really well. I think he's got 3 top 10s this season. Again, he's another guy. Previous to last week, he had finished 8th, 6th, and 11th in the previous 3 races. So he had been running really well. So with the line set at 100-1 to win, if you can get him at even 10-1 to finish in the top 10, that's crazy and almost guaranteed money right there for this guy.
Yeah. If you want to put $5 on him to win the whole dang thing,
that's what I was thinking.
I'm totally down for that. But yeah, I would bet whatever your normal wager is, I would say like a top 10 is, and maybe even a top 5 will make the card for me this week, and I think makes a ton of sense given his history, given his recent performance, and I think partially the way kind of things ended in Martinsville has helped lead to a bigger number than it probably should be. But it's a really interesting race for Sunday, and the more I've dug into it, the more excited I've gotten about the possibility of hitting a nice number this week.
Yeah, and each race that I watch, I get more and more involved in the actual races. So it's getting more exciting as we're kind of getting more involved with this.
Yeah, and like as Sunday approaches, check your books for top 5s, top 10s. Check for head-to-head props. You can sometimes get a lot of
Those
good
are the
value
best.
there, where you're not even really like if you're Austin Dillon is going to be a guy that I'm going to look to see who they haven't pitted up against, because if he's going up against Alex Bowman, a William Byron, or maybe even a Jimmy Johnson, a name that I think he can be better than, and I'm getting a good number, I'm not going to get 10-1, obviously, but I'm only going to have to beat that one car, and
it's going to be plus money in all likelihood.
Yeah. So I'm going to be looking to target that. But all right, Brian, this was good. Good to get in. Good to talk some NASCAR. Make sure you're heading to fakepigskin.com. My article will be up there shortly if it's not already there with some picks. I might wait and get some more top 5 options and give you guys a little more expanded card this week. If you like NFL, make sure you check out our NFL shows. We just talked about Chris Godwin and Dalvin Cook situation, and teams using more 2 tight end sets. So
don't forget to mention Jay Sternberger.
Add him to your draft list. And if you like fantasy football, we'll be talking with Matt Harmon in 2 weeks. So make sure you check that out. But for Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to you guys next time.